I spent weeks cleaning up someone else's mess. Every time I looked out at my lawn, I saw more than just leaves. I saw disrespect. He stood there with his leaf blower, again, pretending like he didn't see the mess piling up in my yard. He thought I'd never fight back. But while he was busy blowing trash into my yard, I was planning something cleaner and so much colder. So I stopped asking nicely and started sending a message. Sometimes revenge isn't loud. It's quiet, intentional. It looks like a man raking leaves at 6 a.m. and leaving behind something unforgettable. I picked up every single leaf and gave him a masterpiece he'd never forget. If you've ever had a neighbor who treats your space like their trash can, then you already know the rage I was feeling. Hit that like button, subscribe, and get ready, because this story proves one thing. Sometimes the best revenge is slow, methodical, and absolutely satisfying. You know how people say, good fences make good neighbors? Well, apparently, my fence wasn't high enough to keep the crap out, at least not when it came to my neighbor Gary and his leaf blower. It started out subtle, a few leaves here and there. No big deal, right? I live in a suburban neighborhood. Trees are everywhere. But then it became routine, predictable, almost like a performance. Every weekend, like clockwork, Gary would fire up his industrial-sized leaf blower, and instead of tidying up his own lawn, he'd accidentally, and I use that term generously, direct half of it straight into my yard. At first, I didn't want to jump to conclusions. Maybe the wind carried them over. Maybe it was just coincidence. But coincidence doesn't happen every single time. And what really got to me wasn't the mess. It was a complete disregard. I'd be out there raking for hours. Meanwhile, Gary, he'd give me a little wave over the fence like we were pals. Like nothing was wrong. Once I brought up, politely, "Hey, Gary, not a huge deal. But could you maybe try to keep the leaves on your side when you're blowing? They keep ending up all over my lawn." He smirked. "Oh, ha! Yeah, the wind's tricky, huh?" Then he turned back around and kept blowing directly at the fence line. I stood there for a few seconds, stunned. My hands gripped the rake a little tighter. My jaw clenched. That was the moment I realized he wasn't just careless. He was doing it on purpose. It was 3 weekends later when I snapped. I had just finished cleaning the entire yard, like top to bottom. It looked like something out of a magazine. I was feeling good, like I had finally reclaimed some peace. Then I heard it. WWWRRRR. The familiar buzz of Gary's leaf blower. I froze. No way. He wouldn't. But as I turned and looked through the slats of the fence, there he was, blowing a thick trail of crunchy brown leaves directly into my lawn again. I swear he made eye contact and smiled. I didn't yell. I didn't stomp over there. No, that's what he'd expect. I just smiled back because I had a plan. The next morning, I set my alarm for 6:30 a.m. I made a fresh pot of coffee. I put on some gloves, and I grabbed my rake. But I didn't just clean up my yard. No shortcuts. No leaf blower. I raked by hand. Every single leaf. Slowly. Methodically. Like an artist preparing a canvas. Then I opened the gate to his yard. No trespassing signs? Nope. No fence line obstruction. And technically, the leaves were his to begin with. I didn't throw them randomly. No, I arranged them into piles. Perfect, symmetrical, strategic piles. Along his walkway, in front of his garage, at the base of his mailbox, and a special big one right on his porch, under the welcome mat. This was not rage. This was art. It took over 2 hours. I worked in silence. The air was cool, the sky still gray. No one else was awake. It was peaceful, meditative, even, and when I was done, I went back inside, made myself a second cup of coffee, and waited. Around 10 a.m., I heard his front door creak open. What the? I peeked through my curtains. There he was, standing in his doorway, robe, slippers, scratching his head like he just stepped into a leaf-based horror movie. He stepped out, crunch, crunch, and looked around like the universe had betrayed him. And then he saw it, the pattern, the order, the deliberate placement. That's when it hit him. He turned slowly toward my house, eyes scanning for movement. I stayed hidden like a leaf ninja. His jaw dropped slightly. He looked offended. Offended. You'd think someone had dumped trash on his lawn. Oh, wait. He never said a word. Not that day. Not the next. Not even a passive-aggressive, nice lawn, or a sarcastic smirk over the fence like he used to. But something had changed, and I felt it immediately. The leaf blower? It stopped. Cold. No more leaves swirling into my yard like it was some kind of seasonal dumping ground. No more, oops, must have been the wind. No more fake smiles. The next Saturday, I heard the familiar hum of his machine, but this time the air was different. I looked out the window, cautious. There he was, Gary, moving slowly, methodically. But now, his leaf blower was angled away from my fence. In fact, he was giving my yard extra space. He was blowing his leaves in an entirely different direction. Even the trees on his side of the fence that usually dumped into my grass, he handled those manually, almost like he didn't want to risk anything floating over. And that's when it hit me. He got the message, loud and clear. A week later, we crossed paths outside, both taking out our trash. No words. He looked up. We locked eyes for a second. He gave me the smallest, most uncomfortable nod a man can make. I nodded back, slow, calm, but confident. That was it. No shouting, no escalation, no HOA drama or neighborhood gossip. Just a pure, cold silence of understanding. It wasn't peace. It was something better. Respect. He knew where the line was now. And more importantly, he knew I wasn't afraid to rake right up to it. There's something deeply satisfying about choosing quiet, intentional revenge over loud confrontation. It wasn't about embarrassing him. It was about making it clear, I see you. I'm not stupid. And I'm not your doormat. Sometimes the best revenge is subtle. A mirror. A reminder that you can play games too, and play them better. It's funny how one leaf at a time can break your patience, but also build your resolve. Gary thought he could walk all over me, but instead, he learned I rake with purpose. If this little dose of backyard justice gave you chills, hit that like button and drop a comment. What's the pettiest but most satisfying revenge you've ever seen? And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that prove karma is real, and sometimes it's covered in leaves.